Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Power Hour Saturday night personal development series. I am the co-host, the co-CEO, Chris Peters, with my brother and co-host, co-founder, co-CEO, Kareem Mays, and we have one of our blogging specialists here, Mr. Dan Sisick of simplysimplelife.com. And we've got Frances Richardson, who is an expert in affiliate marketing. She's from North Carolina. Dan is from Las Vegas, Nevada. And tonight we're going to be continuing our book study course with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I just want to touch a little bit on this book and why it's important to study before we get started. I personally believe this is one of the biggest books in personal development and something that every entrepreneur or person who wants to change their life should be studying very carefully, because the information is in here is one of the foundations to becoming a better you, to becoming a stronger you and a more skillful you, a more successful you, both in life and in business. And I remember hearing about this book back in the early 2000s, and I never really took it seriously when I read it at first. It was something I kind of just went through and was like, okay, this is a good idea, but how much of this is actually real? And then when I joined Mentoring for Free back in 2010, the 30-day mental cleanse call was centered around this book, and they do this constantly throughout the course of the program. So I'm adopting kind of that same thing here with the Entrepreneur Power Hour and the Saturday Night Personal Development Series. Of course, there's going to be other books and audio courses we're featuring, but I figured I'd get started. About 2 seconds once I get the audio player loaded here. Okay. So I also, how long have you guys, Dan, you've been studying Think and Grow Rich for a number of years now. What are some of the best things you've been able to take away from this book?
One, you don't have to know it all.
I like that.
Two, you don't have to be what people, when they think of highly educated, you can be educated and just not in the sense of what everybody else thinks. So that, and then two, the determination to never give up, never stop, because in the book he talks about somebody stopping when they were like 3 feet away from striking it or whatever, or I can't remember which. There's also a book called I think there's a book called 3 Feet from Gold too, which also alludes to that same story about people quitting just as they're getting close to reaching the point where they're going to start seeing a return, and never stick at it long enough because they get frustrated and it doesn't come fast enough.
Right. Kareem, do you want to give Sean the link? He's going to join us, please, and thank you, while I get this queued up. Yeah, and just to really want to go into this for people so they can understand that we're not just a bunch of quacks. This stuff really does work. However, it takes years and years to really, because every time you listen to or read Think and Grow Rich, you're going to get something different from it. Oops, sorry about that. There's always going to be something new you're going to learn, something new you're going to discover about what it takes to be a real success, and you're going to learn more about yourself. More than anything, I'm learning more about myself, how powerful my thoughts are. And what we're going to be listening to tonight is Chapter 6, Imagination, the Workshop of the Mind. And I remember growing up as a kid, and what a great time it was. Yes, I had my difficulties because of my dad and stuff like that, but I remember just the power of my imagination and how I could feel something before I was going to receive it. I would imagine I was going to get it. And as children, they have some of the most powerful imaginations known to man. And they're told not to really engage in them. No, it's just your imagination. No, that's fantasy. That'll never happen. And I think that a lot of that conditioning is why people grow up to be so mediocre, and they grow up to be happy with mediocrity, because they're conditioned from a young age to accept that that's the way it is. And anyway, just wanted to give you guys a quick insight into imagination, the power of the imagination, And don't give up on it, because the imagination is the preview of what's to come in your life. And if you can develop that creative faculty of your mind enough, then good things will start happening for you. So I'm gonna get this ready to go here. Okay, I'm gonna copy it over here. And this one's about 30 minutes long, so everybody just sit back and relax and pay attention. Here we go.
Chapter 6. Imagination, the workshop of the mind. The fifth step toward riches. The imagination is literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man. The impulse, the desire, is given shape, form, and action through the aid of the imaginative faculty of the mind. It has been said that man can create anything which he can imagine. Of all the ages of civilization, this is the most favorable for the development of the imagination because it is an age of rapid change. On every hand, one may contact stimuli which develop the imagination. Through the aid of his imaginative faculty, man has discovered and harnessed more of nature's forces during the past 50 years than during the entire history of the human race previous to that time. He has conquered the air so completely that the birds are a poor match for him in flying. He has harnessed the ether and made it serve as a means of instantaneous communication with any part of the world. He has analyzed and weighed the sun at a distance of millions of miles and has determined through the aid of imagination the elements of which it consists. He has discovered that his own brain is both a broadcasting and a receiving station for the vibration of thought. And he is beginning now to learn how to make more practical use of this discovery. He has increased the speed of locomotion until he may now travel at a speed of more than 300 miles an hour. The time will soon come when man may breakfast in New York and lunch in San Francisco. Man's only limitation with reason lies in his development and use of his imagination. He has not yet reached the apex of development in the use of his imaginative faculty. He has merely discovered that he has an imagination and has commenced to use it in a very elementary way. Two forms of imagination. The imaginative faculty functions in two forms. One is known as synthetic imagination, and the other as creative imagination. Synthetic imagination. Through this faculty, one may arrange old concepts, ideas, or plans into new combinations. This faculty creates nothing. It merely works with the material of experience, education, and observation with which it is fed. It is the faculty used most by the inventor, with the exception of he who draws upon the creative imagination when he cannot solve his problem through synthetic imagination. Creative imagination. Through the faculty of creative imagination, the finite mind of man has direct communication with infinite intelligence. It is the faculty through which hunches and inspirations are received. It is by this faculty that all basic or new ideas are handed over to man. It is through this faculty that thought vibrations from the minds of others are received. It is through this faculty that one individual may tune in or communicate with the subconscious minds of other men. The creative imagination works automatically, in the manner described in subsequent pages. This faculty functions only when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly rapid rate, as for example when the conscious mind is stimulated through the emotion of a strong desire. The creative faculty becomes more alert, more receptive to vibrations from the sources mentioned in proportion to its development through use. This statement is significant. Ponder over it before passing on. Keep in mind as you follow these pages that the entire story of how one may convert desire into money cannot be told in one statement. The story will be complete only when one has mastered, assimilated, and begun to make use of all the principles. The great leaders of business, industry, finance, and the great artists, musicians, poets, and writers became great because they developed the faculty of creative imagination. Both the synthetic and creative faculties of imagination become more alert with use, just as any muscle or organ of the body develops through use. Desire is only a thought, an impulse. It is nebulous and ephemeral. It is abstract and of no value, until it has been transformed into its physical counterpart. While the synthetic imagination is the one which will be used most frequently in the process of transforming the impulse of desire into money, you must keep in mind the fact that you may face the circumstances and situations which demand use of the creative imagination as well. Your imaginative faculty may have become weak through inaction. It can be revived and made alert through use. This faculty does not die, though it may become quiescent through lack of use. Center your attention for the time being on the development of the synthetic imagination, because this is the faculty which you will use more often in the process of converting desire into money. Transformation of the intangible impulse of desire into the tangible reality of money calls for the use of a plan or plans. These plans must be formed with the aid of the imagination, and mainly with the synthetic faculty. Read the entire book through, then come back to this chapter and begin at once to put your imagination to work on building a plan or plans for the transformation of your desire into money. Detailed instructions for the building of plans have been given in almost every chapter. Carry out the instructions best suited to your needs. Reduce your plan to writing if you have not already done so. The moment you complete this, you will have definitely given concrete form to the intangible desire. Read the preceding sentence once more. Read it aloud, very slowly, and as you do so, remember that the moment you reduce the statement of your desire and a plan for its realization to writing, you have actually taken the first of a series of steps which will enable you to convert the thought into its physical counterpart. The earth on which you live, you yourself, and every other material thing are the result of evolutionary change, through which microscopic bits of matter have been organized and arranged in an orderly fashion. Moreover, and this statement is of stupendous importance, this earth, every one of the billions of individual cells of your body, and every atom of matter began as an intangible form of energy. Desire is thought impulse. Thought impulses are forms of energy. When you begin with the thought impulse desire to accumulate money, you are drafting into your service the same stuff that nature used in creating this earth and every material form in the universe, including the body and brain in which the thought impulses function. As far as science has been able to determine, the entire universe consists of the two elements, matter and energy. Through the combination of energy and matter has been created everything perceptible to man, from the largest star which floats in the heavens down to and including man himself. You are now engaged in the task of trying to profit by nature's method. You are, sincerely and earnestly we hope, trying to adapt yourself to nature's laws by endeavoring to convert desire into its physical or monetary equivalent. You can do it. It has been done before. You can build a fortune through the aid of laws which are immutable, but first you must become familiar with these laws and learn to use them. Through repetition and by approaching the description of these principles from every conceivable angle, the author hopes to reveal to you the secret through which every great fortune has been accumulated. Strange and paradoxical as it may seem, the secret is not a secret. Nature herself advertises it in the earth on which we live, the stars, the planets suspended within our view, in the elements above and around us, in every blade of grass, and every form of life within our vision. Nature advertises this secret in the terms of biology, in the conversion of a tiny cell so small that it may be lost on the point of a pin into the human being now reading this line. The conversion of desire into its physical equivalent is certainly no more miraculous. Do not become discouraged if you do not fully comprehend all that has been stated. Unless you have long been a student of the mind, it is not to be expected that you will assimilate all that is in this chapter upon first reading, but you will in time make good progress. The principles which follow will open the way for understanding and imagination. Assimilate that which you understand as you read this philosophy for the first time. Then, when you reread and study it, you will discover that something has happened to clarify it and give you a broader understanding of the whole. Above all, do not stop, nor hesitate in your study of these principles until you have read the book at least 3 times, for then you will not want to stop. How to make practical use of imagination. Ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes. Ideas are products of the imagination. Let us examine a few well-known ideas which have yielded huge fortunes, with the hope that these illustrations will convey definite information concerning the method by which imagination may be used in accumulating riches. The Enchanted Kettle. 50 years ago, an old country doctor drove to town, hitched his horse, quietly slipped into a drugstore by the back door, and began dickering with the young drug clerk. His mission was destined to yield great wealth to many people. It was destined to bring to the South the most far-flung benefit since the Civil War. For more than an hour, behind the prescription counter, the old doctor and the clerk talked in low tones. Then, the doctor left. He went out to the buggy and brought back a large, old-fashioned kettle, a big wooden paddle used for stirring the contents of the kettle, and deposited them in the back of the store. The clerk inspected the kettle, reached into his side pocket, took out a roll of bills, and handed it over to the doctor. The roll contained exactly $500, the clerk's entire savings. The doctor handed over a small slip of paper on which was written a secret formula. The words on that small slip of paper were worth a king's ransom, but not to the doctor. Those magic words were needed to start the kettle to boiling, but neither the doctor nor the young clerk knew what fabulous fortune was destined to flow from that kettle. The old doctor was glad to sell the outfit for $500. The money would pay off his debts and give him freedom of mind. The clerk was taking a big chance by staking his entire life savings on a mere scrap of paper and an old kettle. He never dreamed his investment would start a kettle to overflowing with gold that would surpass the miraculous performance of Aladdin's lamp. What the clerk really purchased was an idea. The old kettle and the wooden paddle and the secret message on a slip of paper were incidental. The strange performance of that kettle began to take place after the new owner mixed with the secret instructions an ingredient of which the doctor knew nothing. Read this story carefully. Give your imagination a test. See if you can discover what it was the young man added to the secret message which caused the kettle to overflow with gold. Remember as you read, this is not a story from Arabian Nights. Here you have a story of facts stranger than fiction, facts which began in the form of an idea. Let us take a look at the vast fortunes of gold this idea has produced. It has paid and still pays huge fortunes to men and women all over the world who distribute the contents of the kettle to millions of people. The old kettle is now one of the world's largest consumers of sugar, thus providing jobs of a permanent nature to thousands of men and women engaged in growing sugarcane and in refining and marketing sugar. The old kettle consumes annually millions of glass bottles, providing jobs to huge numbers of glass workers. The old kettle gives employment to an army of clerks, stenographers, copywriters, and advertising experts throughout the nation. It has brought fame and fortune to scores of artists who have created magnificent pictures describing the product. The old kettle has converted a small southern city into the business capital of the South, where it now benefits directly or indirectly every business and practically every resident of the city. The influence of this idea now benefits every civilized country in the world, pouring out a continuous stream of gold to all who touch it. Gold from the kettle built and maintains one of the most prominent colleges of the South, where thousands of young people receive the training essential for success. The old kettle has done other marvelous things. All through the world depression, when factories, banks, and business houses were folding up and quitting by the thousands, the owner of this enchanted kettle went marching on, giving continuous employment to an army of men and women all over the world, and paying out extra portions of gold to those who long ago had faith in the idea. If the product of that old brass kettle could talk, it would tell thrilling tales of romance in every language. Romances of love, romances of businesses, romances of professional men and women who are daily being stimulated by it. The author is sure of at least one such romance, for he was part of it, and it all began not far from the very spot on which the drug clerk purchased the old kettle. It was here that the author met his wife, and it was she who first told him of the enchanted kettle. It was the product of that kettle they were drinking when he asked her to accept him for better or worse. Now that you know the content of the enchanted kettle is a world-famous drink, it is fitting that the author confess that the home city of the drink supplied him with a wife. Also, that the drink itself provides him with stimulation of thought without intoxication, and thereby serves to give refreshment of mind, which an author must have to do his best work. Whoever you are, wherever you may live, whatever occupation you may be engaged in, just remember in the future, every time you see the words Coca-Cola, that its vast empire of wealth and influence grew out of a single idea, and that the mysterious ingredient the drug clerk Asa Candler mixed with the secret formula was imagination. Stop and think of that for a moment. Remember also that the 13 steps to riches described in this book were the medium through which the influence of Coca-Cola has been extended to every city, town, village, and crossroads of the world, and that any idea you may create as ambitious and meritorious as Coca-Cola has the possibility of duplicating the stupendous record of this worldwide thirst killer. Truly, thoughts are things, and their scope of operation is the world itself. What I would do if I had $1 million. This story proves the truth of that old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. It was told to me by that beloved educator and clergyman, the late Frank W. Gonzalez, who began his preaching career in the Stockyards region of South Chicago. While Dr. Gonzalez was going through college, he observed many defects in our educational system, defects which he believed he could correct if he were the head of a college. His deepest desire was to become the directing head of an educational institution in which young men and women would be taught to learn by doing. He made up his mind to organize a new college in which he could carry out his ideas without being handicapped by orthodox methods of education. He needed $1 million to put the project across. Where was he to lay his hands on so large a sum of money? That was the question that absorbed most of this ambitious young preacher's thought. But he couldn't seem to make any progress. Every night, he took that thought to bed with him. He got up with it in the morning. He took it with him everywhere he went. He turned it over and over in his mind until it became a consuming obsession with him. $1 million is a lot of money. He recognized that fact, but he also recognized the truth that the only limitation is that which one sets up in one's own mind. Being a philosopher as well as a preacher, Dr. Gonzalez recognized, as do all who succeed in life, that definiteness of purpose is the starting point from which one must begin. He recognized, too, that definiteness of purpose takes on animation, life, and power when backed by a burning desire to translate that purpose into its material equivalent. He knew all these great truths, yet he did not know where or how to lay his hands on $1 million. The natural procedure would have been to give up and quit by saying, "Ah, well, my idea is a good one, but I cannot do anything with it because I never can procure the necessary $1 million." That is exactly what the majority of people would have said, but it is not what Dr. Gonzalez said. What he said and what he did are so important that I now introduce him and let him speak for himself. One Saturday afternoon, I sat in my room thinking of ways and means of raising the money to carry out my plans. For nearly 2 years I had been thinking, but I had done nothing but think. The time had come for action. I made up my mind then and there that I would get the necessary $1 million within a week. How? I was not concerned about that. The main thing of importance was the decision to get the money within a specified time. And I want to tell you that the moment I reached a definite decision to get the money within a specified time, a strange feeling of assurance came over me, such as I had never before experienced. Something inside me seemed to say, "Why didn't you reach that decision a long time ago? The money was waiting for you all the time." Things began to happen in a hurry. I called the newspapers and announced I would preach a sermon the following morning entitled, "What I Would Do If I Had $1 Million." I went to work on the sermon immediately, but I must tell you frankly, the task was not difficult. because I had been preparing that sermon for almost 2 years. The spirit back of it was part of me. Long before midnight, I had finished writing the sermon. I went to bed and slept with a feeling of confidence, for I could see myself already in possession of the $1 million. Next morning, I arose early, went into the bathroom, read the sermon, then knelt on my knees and asked that my sermon might come to the attention of someone who would supply the needed money. While I was praying, I again had that feeling of assurance that the money would be forthcoming. In my excitement, I walked out without my sermon and did not discover the oversight until I was in my pulpit and about ready to begin delivering it. It was too late to go back for my notes. And what a blessing that I couldn't go back. Instead, my own subconscious mind yielded the material I needed. When I arose to begin my sermon, I closed my eyes and spoke with all my heart and soul of my dreams. I not only talked to my audience, but I fancy I talked also to God. I told what I would do with $1 million if that amount were placed in my hands. I described the plan I had in mind for organizing a great educational institution where young people would learn to do practical things and, at the same time, develop their minds. When I had finished and sat down, a man slowly arose from his seat, about 3 rows from the rear, and made his way toward the pulpit. I wondered what he was going to do. He came into the pulpit, extended his hand, and said, "Reverend, I liked your sermon. I believe you can do everything you said you would if you had $1 million. To prove that I believe in you and your sermon, if you will come to my office tomorrow morning, I will give you the $1 million. My name is Philip D. Amore." Young Gonzalez went to Mr. Amore's office, and the $1 million was presented to him. With the money, he founded the Amore Institute of Technology. That is more money than the majority of preachers ever see in an entire lifetime. Yet, the thought impulse back of the money was created in the young preacher's mind in a fraction of a minute. The necessary $1 million came as a result of an idea. Back of the idea was a desire which young Gonzalez had been nursing in his mind for almost 2 years. Observe this important fact. He got the money within 36 hours after he reached a definite decision in his own mind to get it and decided upon a definite plan for getting it. There was nothing new or unique about young Gonzalez's vague thinking about $1 million and weakly hoping for it. Others before him, and many since his time, have had similar thoughts. But there was something very unique and different about the decision he reached on the memorable Saturday when he put vagueness into the background and definitely said, "I will get that money within a week." God seems to throw himself on the side of the man who knows exactly what he wants, if he is determined to get just that. Moreover, the principle through which Dr. Gonzalez got his $1 million is still alive. It is available to you. This universal law is as workable today as it was when the young preacher made use of it so successfully. This book describes step by step the 13 elements of this great law and suggests how they may be put to use. Observe that Asa Candler and Dr. Frank Gonzalez had one characteristic in common. Both knew the astounding truth that ideas can be transmuted into cash through the power of definite purpose plus definite plans. If you are one of those who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought. It is not true. Riches, when they come in huge quantities, are never the result of hard work. Riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands, based upon the application of definite principles, and not by chance or luck. Generally speaking, an idea is an impulse of thought that impels action by an appeal to the imagination. All master salesmen know that ideas can be sold where merchandise cannot. Ordinary salesmen do not know this. That is why they are ordinary. A publisher of books which sell for a nickel made a discovery that should be worth much to publishers generally. He learned that many people buy titles and not contents of books. By merely changing the name of one book that was not moving, his sales on that book jumped upward more than 1 million copies. The inside of the book was not changed in any way. He merely ripped off the cover bearing the title that did not sell and put on a new cover with a title that had box office value. That, as simple as it may seem, was an idea. It was imagination. There is no standard price on ideas. The creator of ideas makes his own price, and, if he is smart, gets it. The moving picture industry created a whole flock of millionaires. Most of them were men who couldn't create ideas, but they had the imagination to recognize ideas when they saw them. The next flock of millionaires will grow out of the radio business, which is new and not overburdened with men of keen imagination. The money will be made by those who discover or create new and more meritorious radio programs and have the imagination to recognize merit and to give the radio listeners a chance to profit by it. The sponsor, that unfortunate victim who now pays the cost of all radio entertainment, soon will become idea conscious and demand something for his money. The man who beats the sponsor to the draw and supplies programs that render useful service is the man who will become rich in this new industry. Crooners and light chatter artists who now pollute the air with wise cracks and silly giggles will go the way of all light timbers, and their places will be taken by real artists who interpret carefully planned programs, which have been designed to service the minds of men as well as provide entertainment. Here is a wide open field of opportunity, screaming its protest at the way it is being butchered because of lack of imagination, and begging for rescue at any price. Above all, the thing that radio needs is new ideas. If this new field of opportunity intrigues you, perhaps you might profit by the suggestion that successful radio programs of the future will give more attention to creating buyer audiences and less attention to listener audiences. Stated more plainly, the builder of radio programs who succeeds in the future must find practical ways to convert listeners into buyers. Moreover, the successful producer of radio programs in the future must key his features so that he can definitely show its effect upon the audience. Sponsors are becoming a bit weary of buying glib selling talks based upon statements grabbed out of thin air. They want, and in the future will demand, indisputable proof that the Who's It program not only gives millions of people the silliest giggle ever, but that the silly giggler can sell merchandise. Another thing that might as well be understood by those who contemplate entering this new field of opportunity: radio advertising is going to be handled by an entirely new group of advertising experts, separate and distinct from the old-time newspaper and magazine advertising agency men. The old-timers in the advertising game cannot read the modern radio scripts because they have been schooled to see ideas. The new radio technique demands men who can interpret ideas from a written manuscript in terms of sound. It cost the author a year of hard labor and many thousands of dollars to learn this. Radio right now is about where the moving pictures were when Mary Pickford and her curls first appeared on the screen. There is plenty of room in radio for those who can produce or recognize ideas. If the foregoing comment on the opportunities of radio has not started your idea factory to work, you had better forget it. Your opportunity is in some other field. If the comment intrigued you in the slightest degree, then go further into it, and you may find the one idea you need to round out your career. Never let it discourage you if you have no experience in radio. Andrew Carnegie knew very little about making steel. I have Carnegie's own word for this, but he made practical use of two of the principles described in this book and made the steel business yield him a fortune. The story of practically every great fortune starts with the day when a creator of ideas and a seller of ideas got together and worked in harmony. Carnegie surrounded himself with men who could do all that he could not do. Men who created ideas and men who put ideas into operation and made himself and the others fabulously rich. Millions of people go through life hoping for favorable breaks. Perhaps a favorable break can get one an opportunity, but the safest plan is not to depend upon luck. It was a favorable break that gave me the biggest opportunity of my life, but 25 years of determined effort had to be devoted to that opportunity before it became an asset. The break consisted of my good fortune in meeting and gaining the cooperation of Andrew Carnegie. On that occasion, Carnegie planted in my mind the idea of organizing the principles of achievement into a philosophy of success. Thousands of people have profited by the discoveries made in the 25 years of research, and several fortunes have been accumulated through the application of the philosophy. The beginning was simple. It was an idea which anyone might have developed. The favorable break came through Carnegie. But what about the determination, definiteness of purpose, and the desire to attain the goal and the persistent effort of 25 years? It was no ordinary desire that survived disappointment, discouragement, temporary defeat, criticism, and the constant reminding of wasted time. It was a burning desire, an obsession. When the idea was first planted in my mind by Mr. Carnegie, it was coaxed, nursed, and enticed to remain alive. Gradually, the idea became a giant under its own power, and it coaxed, nursed, and drove me. Ideas are like that. First, you give life and action and guidance to ideas, then they take on a power of their own and sweep aside all opposition. Ideas are intangible forces, but they have more power than the physical brains that give birth to them. They have the power to live on after the brain that creates them has returned to dust. For example, take the power of Christianity. That began with a simple idea, born in the brain of Christ. Its chief tenet was, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Christ has gone back to the source from whence he came, but his idea goes marching on. Someday it may grow up and come into its own. Then it will have fulfilled Christ's deepest desire. The idea has been developing only 2,000 years. Give it time. Success requires no explanations. Failure permits no alibis.
Turn my lights on.
Dan, the man.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm good. Just waiting for Chris to step back there.
Yeah, that was a good segment. I mean, I am an avid proponent of positive thinking and the benefits that it'll bring to you. And I definitely believe in prayer. But it sounds like to somebody that isn't familiar with the concept of positive thinking, or they haven't had the experience of the laws of abundance, then it would be a fantasy, a fairy tale.
Okay. I don't think about people like that, though. That doesn't matter to me. Those are the people that I don't want to do business with, because those are the people that are going to be doubting our product or our service. That's not important to me. Those are people who are not important to me at all. Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, but you still want to keep an open line for them, so that way you can help open their minds and help them see the possibility. And I think if we're all honest a little bit, especially when we were kids, we've all set our minds to doing something and getting something that we wanted. And a lot of times when, as a kid, when a kid sets his mind to doing something, they usually somehow come about it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they may not understand the principles or the laws, they understand that it works. And I think if you can go back and get them in touch with that and bring them forth and bring them up to that, they can harness that and understand that and use it, and get them to understand that it's not an overnight thing, that once again it's going to take time, energy, and constant working towards it.
action and reaction. Yes.
Right. That it
The
can be.
wishing, hoping is not going to get
Hey,
it
friend,
done.
don't interrupt, Dan, please. Go ahead, Dan. I'm trying to hear both of you.
No, that's okay. It's no problem. She made some good points.
No, I know, but I can't hear both of you at the same time. Go ahead, Dan. Uh-oh. Something froze. Kareem, did you freeze?
You know,
There we go.
excuse me, sorry. So you still want
Bless
to be
you.
open. I think you want to be open and keep that open line, because I think if you say you're closing off or you're not interested in, you're closing off an avenue and you're closing off part of the process.
Hmm.
I still think, though, that people that are set in their ways are set in their ways. That's why not everyone's that's why not everyone's going to do this. That's why not everybody's going to engage in what it takes to own your life. They would rather get up and go to work every day and not have to face the responsibility of building a better self. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. So I guess the point I was making is that I want to attract people to us that are already in that mindset.
I agree, but at the same point, if the opportunity is there and it rises and it opens, you want to be able to show by your actions what you've done or the things you've accomplished or other people that you know, and drive them to that so they can see the proof to help them maybe rethink their ideas. And then that way, and it may not be through you, they might open up. It might still be a little bit of time down the road, but hopefully you've helped plant that seed.
You planted the seed. I agree, Dan.
I also think that if most of the time, if people see somebody successful, they think they had some kind of luck, or they think that they well, who did you have to step on to get here, or who did you scam? It's skepticism is toxic, and unfortunately, so many people are filled with skepticism that I think that in order to tackle that issue, people need to be open to change, and that's what it really comes down to. What are they open to change? First of all, if they're open to change, then Kareem and I can do something to help them. If they're not open to change, then I'm not going to waste my time. It's
Well, you used an interesting term earlier, the term responsibility.
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's personal responsibility. Like you're responsible for all the results you're getting. So why, if people knew that more than anything else, then they would understand the concept of changing the way they think and how much power it could have. But like I said, they don't want that responsibility. Most people don't want. It's too much work for most people. They just think that if, like I said, they're comfortable living in a bubble and going to work every day. They like knowing that someone else is taking care of their income for them. If they go and work 8 hours, their income is taken care of. They get stuck in a comfort zone, in a rut of routine and redundancy, and people become happy with that, or at least content. So they don't keep educating themselves, and they don't keep making progress. Although and one thing I wish that people would see more is that every person they work for, or the company they work for, had to grow, and that company had to adapt those beliefs, the growth, the changing, everything we're talking about here to get. How did Sam Walton build Walmart? Well, that's exactly how he did it.
But that's the whole crust of the whole thing. Every business, everything like that has been built on first an idea, a thought, or something like that. So if you get people to understand that and work with them and get them to understand, and then get this book in their hands, granted you can't force them to read it, granted you can't make them, but if you give them the opportunity and help them to understand that everything that's been brought about has been brought about because somebody had an idea and a thought to get it going forward. And it didn't just magically appear there.
Nope. You're
You
right.
know, it didn't come out of nothing.
No.
So in that sense, I don't think they can argue with you on that end, and then from there, you can hopefully move them that direction. Doesn't mean you have to waste forever. Doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of time with them. If they keep giving you the same old answers, then yeah, okay, move on, and let them be to themselves.
No, I
Right,
agree.
next.
Those people, like I said, they can be helped. But the thing is, they want to have to help themselves, and the material's out here. I mean, all you got to do is look for it. And now, because of the internet, no one has any excuse anymore. You know, back in even I'd say the turn of the 90s, okay, not everybody could afford a library card, but there's free libraries, and now there's free internet. You go anywhere. If you got a Wi-Fi, a device that accepts Wi-Fi, there's no excuse. People can get that knowledge. They can start learning this stuff. And I guess I just have this attitude that, hey, you know, it's out there. Why aren't you learning about it? It's there. It's free. You know, take advantage. And again, that boils down to people taking things for granted that they don't have to pay for. Because people don't see any intrinsic value if they're not investing something in it. And I learned that the hard way. Kareem and I both learned that the hard way when we were in mentoring for free. When we were doing all this stuff for people for nothing. And anyway, it was a learning experience. But again, our time wasn't valued because we did everything for nothing. So.
I agree. I get that. I understand that. And, going back to this book, I think, this is how we get the ideas and the principles and stuff out, and the more we can get it out just in general to people, somebody's going to pick it up somewhere, and people are, that are, actively desiring or wanting, they're going to pick it up and go and work towards it.
Yep.
Some others may not. There's always, the ones in the crowd. Even look in nature. You always have the ones in nature that are the strong, the biggest, and the weak ones, kind of, So I think, you can't help everybody, and we can't, force it down anybody's throat. But I also don't think, to me, it's just not worth it to me to just totally turn off and say, I qualify and put it in terms of, if they seem interested or they give me something of interest to work with, okay, I'll work with you. If they don't follow through, then I'm kind of like, okay, time to move forward. And when you come around to it, or I'll keep giving you things to go look or things to do, or, every now and then, just to maybe keep putting that thought fresh in their head. But that's why I blog, put out there and have people maybe come back to something. Or I've gone back to something and looked at something after I first looked at it and thought, okay, and then I've gone back to it. Like, oh, okay, let me try that. Let me see if it does work. Things like that. So that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree. But I also think, again, that it's the people have to make the choice. But hey, I want something other than this 9-to-5 job that I can't stand anymore. I want something other than this 50-hour work week where I only see my wife or my husband for 3 hours a day, and I only see my kids twice a week.
Yeah, I agree. That's
It boils down to making that decision.
Just tell them I won't be at church tomorrow. Tell them to pull the plug on Ray and Nephew.
Fran, can you mute, please?
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay.
But
Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say,
I didn't talk about them, but yes,
going back into the book, I'm with you. I had a huge imagination as a kid, and as I've gotten older, it's kind of, I don't want to say gone by the wayside. I just don't sit and play with my imagination enough to keep me going. Do you get what I'm saying? I mean,
Yes.
keep me like, oh, up here in a higher vibration level that I need sometimes, and I get into that complacency and into that day-to-day rut and things like that. And so I think, that's part. Another part is we have to learn to revisit our imagination and grab a hold of that.
Something you have to stimulate every day, I would say.
Right, and work and use. I mean, what does some other people think?
Kareem and Sean are here.
You guys must have some thoughts.
Yeah.
Sean, Kareem?
I think that's why we talked to Sean in the first place. And that's why we actually started Chris, doing what we're doing here. Just what we talked about. He's
I'm on a call right now.
Okay.
I would, yeah, I mean, and that's just it, right? Like, and here's another thing. I don't mind making enemies doing this. I don't mind. And if you start making enemies and people are starting to like attack you, and they're starting to say, what are you doing? Like, hey, no, you can't, no, you can't do that. Who are you to do that? That means that you are succeeding, because people are starting to see that and they're getting threatened by it. That's gonna happen. And that's a sign you're progressing in the right direction. So don't let people affect you that way. If you're making enemies, be happy. If you got people talking shit about you, be happy, because that means you're doing something right. You're doing it right. And they're threatened by your success. And I think part of the charm of doing this is I want people to, I shouldn't say I want people to dislike, but I want people to doubt, because then when our success shuts them up, it'll be just like that much better. I kind of have an ego that way, and I don't care, because I'm working my ass off for what I want, and I want to shut people up. And who doesn't? Anybody that says they don't care about that is lying. Because when you got people naysaying you, and you got people that when you create a dream and you're starting to do something, and you got people attacking you, and you take it in a bit, you definitely want to see the look on their face when you've made it. Well, what? Oh, and then they come up to you and they shake your hand and go, "Hey, I'm sorry, man." That's when I'm gonna go, "Yeah, well, I don't need you in my life anyway." It's if you were absent during my struggles, don't expect to be present during my success. That's my philosophy.
I like that philosophy. I do. I approach it a little bit differently. Here's how if someone says it's not going to work, or what's it getting you, and I've had people do that with the band, the Power Hour, with other things, I say, well, what's it getting you? How much you making? And they want to expect that I'll say some big figure, and if I don't, then they say, well, it's not generating tons of income. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And I do want to generate income from it, but I understand that things take time. Like, I'm not going to jump on, even when I started freelancing with videos, I'm not going to jump on and make $500,000 clients.
Not yet.
It's very rare it happens.
Not yet.
So
eventually we're gonna get
this. Eventually. But what I do is I say, hey, if you don't want to believe, that's fine. Yeah. Have fun. I'll talk to you later. And then they start seeing it, and then they come back. I don't even have to get mad or ego. I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, sure. But my band's not, gonna do much, and you can believe whatever you want to believe and have fun. I just nonchalantly blow it off. And what happens is then they get more interested. They're like, oh, maybe he had something, I just didn't think about it. Mm-hmm. And it's a really nice day. That's why I'm outside.
Yeah, it's nice here too. Yep. I guess I'm just I have a bit more of an edge than you, so I like shutting people up. I enjoy I enjoy that feeling, and I like making people, here's the thing. I like making people feel like if they doubt me, I like making them feel dumb, because then they're not going to go do it to somebody else. If I can get them to think differently and go, you know what, now you're shutting up, right? And now you see that anything's possible. Well, next time you got someone in your life that's going for it, don't make fun of them. I really hope that it teaches them a lesson so they shut their mouth. I just can't stand people that run their mouth with no fact. They gotta doubt everybody because their own life's miserable, and it's unfortunate. That's the way people are, though. So I like kind of firing back like that. That's just the way I am. So
I think that's where it comes down to, where it depends on who you surround yourself with, right?
Absolutely.
If you have your naysayers surrounding you, that's the mindset that you're gonna have. So a lot of times when I meet naysayers all the time, and I just put them in the back of my mind. I don't even use a motivation. I get whatever input I can from them regarding a project. If they say, I ask them, I'm inquisitive. If they say it's not gonna work, I said, why do you think it's not gonna work? And if it's something of substance, I retain it. But if not, then I move on, and I surround myself with individuals that are positive thinking and are successful. And there's a different kind of mindset where somebody can tell me, there's different kind of people. There's people who motivate you, and there's other people who are successful that want to help you. And I found myself when I neglected those that I didn't meet in my life that were negative, I gravitated toward those people that were more complimentary, but they also were not successful. So what I started doing is finding successful people and hanging around them who were positive. And most successful people are positive, I find.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. So that was my turning point, because you're gonna have people in life all the time saying it's not gonna work, but I get what I can from them, and then I just lose touch. And I find individuals that are positive thinking, but also have success in their life. So there's a difference between getting people who surround you that compliment you all the time and tell you good things, but that's not really going to help you. You have to surround yourself with people with the mindset to be successful. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense, because that's kind of what I'm doing. If someone were to come up to me and say, your idea doesn't make sense, or I don't like what you're doing, I'm like, hey, I have work to do for Sean. I have to open up for Lorna Shore tomorrow and playing music. I don't have time to sit there and say it can't be done when I'm working on doing it. And that's why I don't really shut people up, because the energy that's needed to shut them up could be done to do something more productive.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, I just take what I can from them. Like whatever, you might have some positive, some input for me, They're like, oh, it's not going to work for whatever, that app's not going to work for whatever reason. It's like, why? Why wouldn't you use the app? I just ask them questions. And if the questions are emotion-based, I ignore them. If it's some kind of emotional-based response, like, oh, I hate it, then that's not going to help me. But if they actually give me something practical, like, oh, I wouldn't use it because it's too complicated or something, I ask them, why is it too complicated? And and if they continue to be negative, then I just let them on the wayside. But I see it as opportunities to say, okay, why do you think it's not going to be successful? And it's every encounter I have is an opportunity for me, and then I take whatever I can from that. It might be a little selfish on my part, but it's they're expressing themselves, so I might as well get what I can from it, right? So that's just how I see things.
I guess what I mean is the people that have said stuff that's counterproductive don't know a damn thing about building a business. So I'm not going to listen to people like that regardless of anything they say.
And that's fine.
If they don't have what I want, why would I listen to them at all?
Yeah. And that's why I said, if it's an emotional response, like I hate it, then that's not going to be constructive for you. So why? You're right. You have every right to ignore them.
Yep.
So it's where it's coming from in that case for you.
Like if it was someone like you, who's and who says, guys, this approach isn't going to work, and the reason I would say, oh, Okay, Sean, well, why do you think it's not going to work? Well, you know what the hell you're doing, so I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to go, okay, man, well, show us a way that it will work. What do you think will work? That's different, because you built a successful business. So you have that authority behind your convictions, and you have the experience behind your convictions, and you're not saying it to be negative. You're saying it to say, guys, like, I want to see you succeed, and I know what can help you do that. I'd be a fool not to listen to that. So there's a notable difference between people who are going to tell you something's not going to work because they've done it and it hasn't worked, and they know what it takes to do it the correct way.
Correct.
And there's people who are just going to say it's not going to work because they don't want to see you succeed.
And those are the kind of people you shouldn't have in your life.
I don't.
If they're just gonna put you down for the sake of putting you down, then you shouldn't have them in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth the energy, like Kareem said, the energy to divulge into that. You know, it's not worth it for you to do that.
Nope, you're right.
So
well, I don't for the most part. I've gotten rid of a lot of people.
Yeah. It's not gonna,
Well, I think the key thing I got from what Kareem said is he doesn't really fire back at him. He doesn't really say anything because all it will do is just elicit another negative thing, and you get caught up in that going back and forth and stuff. He just kind of lets, okay, fine, you know, and he moves on, and he lets him moving on and still being productive and doing what he does speak for what to speak back to him that, okay, you said that, but I'm still moving forward, and in moving forward, this is you'll see that I'm going to get there, and then at least then you still haven't, you know, been negative back to them or made them feel, you know, like we don't, nobody likes it when somebody, so to speak, puts us in our place. You know, sometimes we need to have that happen, and we need it, but sometimes in that sense you can get more of a get back, and to a lack of a better way of saying it, at them by producing and getting something and moving forward and letting them see that, and then they like, oh, you know, and that's just a bigger way, I think, of how you and might get them to come around, and they could maybe become a customer of yours. Doesn't necessarily have to be a business partner, but they could maybe become a customer of yours or something like that.
Yeah, that's true too. I don't know, like I said, I just that's just kind of how I am, man. I enjoy shutting people up.
And you know what? And that's what's great about you. You're you, and that's you know, and that's what's awesome and cool about you.
Thank you.
You know,
thank you.
You know?
And I don't mean it in like in a malicious sense of the word or an insulting way. It's like, ha! I told you I was gonna do it, didn't I? Now look at you. Now you got nothing to say. It's getting them to think twice before they open their mouth, and that's the hugest thing that I don't like about negative people. They don't think before they speak. They don't think of how what they're saying is going to affect someone else. They have no regard for, because they're what they are is they're focused inward rather than outward. They're focused on themselves, not what's going on out there, not the changes that they want to see out there. They got this woe is me mentality, and I got to spread it on to everybody else. So those are the people I enjoy shutting up. Those are the people I'm talking about. Not you guys, and not good, you know, not you guys or anything, but yeah, that's just me, man. That's the way it is. That's the way I am. I accept it. I totally accept it. So, but anyway, I want to thank Mr. Dan Sissick from Simply Simple Life. I will put a link in the final edited video for Dan's blog. You can go and check out his blog. Very great guy. Awesome content, great writer, and he's been writing for the Entrepreneur Power Hour. We're going to get, Kareem, we got to get his stuff up on under our blog section as well. We also need to talk with Dan about, he wants to get some hosting through us, so we're going to help him with that. And then I want to thank Sean Chun from Honolulu, Hawaii. He's one of our mentors. That Dan, you're meeting one of our mentors here tonight. He's helping us with our business plan and forming a structure for what we're doing. So great people, great for you guys to be here. And without you guys, this mastermind just simply wouldn't be possible. And that's what makes it great, is we all have such diverse personalities, and I think that's what really makes Kareem and I click, is how different we are, and that's something that Dan's helped us with to realize, as well as Sean is helping us build a foundation around the differences in our personalities and stuff, and what's unique about Kareem and I, and so I want to thank Sean for all of his help.
Yeah, that's the key. You guys have something good going. It's just a matter of packaging it correctly in order to
Thank you.
reach that target market.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to stop the recording now, and I want to wish everybody a great Saturday night. And if you're a basketball fan, please cheer for the Boston Celtics, because they're down 2-0, and they got killed by LeBron James in Cleveland last night. It was ugly. It was ugly. All right. Thanks, guys.